Okay, welcome everybody to tasting number 15.1 for this year's Octomore release. That's coming out later in the fall. No, this is tasting number 151. I like that it kind of fell on that 15.1 marking. It's not 15.0. That was last week. But we're doing a pretty special tasting tonight. This is considered a luxury tasting for the Saratoga Whiskey Club. Not necessarily because of fancy anything. It's just the whiskey. The whiskey is really great. So we're gonna really dive into Bruichladdich tonight, and we're gonna taste 6 different Octomores from over a year ago and last year's release. So all of the 13.123 and the 14.123. We don't have the 0.4s, but that's okay. We're going to be plenty happy with what we're tasting tonight. But to get started, actually, I found a video on YouTube that a guy called the Whiskey Geek did about actually 5 years ago when we were at Bruichladdich for the festival. But it's a really good 5-minute kind of just overview of the distillery and kind of some of the whiskeys that they produce. So I thought it would be good before we jump into this first one that we watch this and just kind of get into the Islay spirit. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to point my screen towards the group that's here. Tonight we have a big group in house as well. So let me go ahead and do this. Oh, actually, I don't want feeder mode. Stop. There we go. All right, so I'm going to play this for you guys as well. It's about people laying in bed.
Post-concert bliss. It's a pre-game hype. In 1993, White Mackay acquired Bruichladdich along with Jura. Seeing them as essentially the same thing, an island distillery, they chose to mothball Bruichladdich in January of 1995. Enter Mark Renier, a wine merchant who, upon opening an old bottle of Bruichladdich at a party he was hosting, became enamored with the quality of the spirit and set out to buy the distillery, an acquisition he completed in the year 2000.
Well, it's not very warm in here. It'll definitely be warm after the tasting anyway. So what that piece of kit will do is it will weigh our barley in 40 kilogram doses. So every 40 kilograms makes a metal clinking sound, which is the sound of that weigh machine tipping. So 40 kilos of that malt will then gather down here before being taken up this wooden column.
Coming from the wine industry, Mark is a firm appreciator of terroir, the integrity of the ingredients and their source. This is a core value still held close to Bruichladdich heart. All whiskey produced at Bruichladdich is based on Scottish barley, around a third of which is grown on Islay. The majority of this is unpeated, but a minority is very heavily peated to approximately 80 ppm for the Octomore brand, and the Port Charlotte brand is made from a mixture of both unpeated and a heavily peated barley.
You see the level of activity in there? There's always an assumption with that there's something stirring it or aggravating it at the bottom, but in actual fact, the only thing at the bottom of this is a hole, which we use for training it.
Wanting to stay true to the original soft and floral style, Bruichladdich still used the original cast iron open-topped mash tun, 6 Oregon pine washbacks, and 2 pairs of stills with tall necks to give plenty of copper contact. The spirit is then cooled in shell and tube condensers. This distillation setup leads to a soft and light spirit, so although the mash bill may start with 80 ppm, they believe they lose about 2/3 of that phenol content through distillation. The distillery currently operates 9 to 10 mashes per week to produce 1 million litres of alcohol annually, but they have capacity to increase that up to 1.5 million. There is also a gin still in the corner for infusing the botanist gin with their botanical recipe. Our tour guide Fraser did a great job of showing us around and sharing his enthusiasm for Bruichladdich. The tour finished in a dunnage warehouse where I searched the aging stocks for a leaky cask to smell semi-successfully. Next time I visit the distillery, I'll definitely be doing the warehouse tasting to get to try more of these wonderful whiskies in such a perfect setting.
That's a 26-year-old Bruichladdich in bourbon. This is one of, I think, about 18 warehouses we've got. There's a couple of thousand casks in here. We've over 70, between 70 and 75,000 at the minute. And again, all within 2 miles. So we've got 12 warehouses here on site and another 5 have just been.
Charles, the video sound quality is really poor and it's very herky-jerky.
We didn't know if we'd be able to ever get 10 and a half.
Thanks, Shalom.
And then there's another few, unfortunately, again, very small dunnage ones like this. We like to think of the casks as pleasing, so they're letting out the angel's share, which is a lovely smell, but they're also kind of taking in their own surroundings.
All right, we're gonna stop.
Afterwards, you were allowed to sample from a great.
All right, so now they're going into the shop. We don't need to do that because that's going to just be torturous. So let me exit. Stop the share. All right. Yeah, so I just wanted to get a little idea of the distillery. Yeah, the video was jerky, Shalom, but that's you know, the way it is. If you got seasick, then that means you're on Isla. So but yeah, so tonight we're going to do the most heavily peated expressions from Bruichladdich. We're going to do 6 of them. And just a little background on the Octomore series. The numbers have significance, the decimal points. They get pretty complicated, but just in a nutshell, the 0.1 is Scottish barley that's matured in ex-American oak. The 0.2 is Scottish barley that's matured in European oak. And then the 0.3 is going to be Isla grown barley. And they kind of mix it up in terms of what they do with casks. So what we're going to do for this tasting, it's really going to be up to everybody here what you want to do. You could do 13.1 versus 14.1, you know, to actually compare American oak expressions. That's one way to do it. Or we could just do the 13s and then go to the 14s and see which we like better, or we can just jump around. I was kind of thinking maybe it would be fun to do 13.1, then go to 14.1. You know, just because when do you have that opportunity to actually taste these side by side like that? The placemat's not set up exactly for that, but that's okay. I think we can all figure that out. Yeah.
What's the designation? 13 versus 14? Is that just expression?
Yeah. So these are the actual annual releases. So there was a 1.1 originally. So we're now on the 14s. This year will be the release of the 15s. So that's where that comes from. You know, when they were doing the early Octomore releases, there weren't as many decimals, I don't think. I think there might have just been 3, but now they added a 4th. And now they even have like some standalone Octomores. Like we had the Event Horizon back in 2019, and then they have an annual release of a 10-year-old as well. So they're doing some other things besides just these decimals at this point as well. But all right, let me grab 13.1 and 14.1. I didn't pour mine because I'm just having a tiny bit tonight. And then I will go over the details on each of these. The 13.1, just so that you know right off the bat, is 59.2%. And the 14.1 is 59.6. So they're almost the same ABV, just slightly different. All right, and let me go over the details on these because I have I pulled up a bunch of stuff. All right, so let me just
get around sweetness.
get rid of that. Let me just move some of this stuff here.
Yeah.
Okay, so 13.1 here. Listen up, guys. 13.1. This is off of Bruichlati's website, so you can have real deal information here. 13.1 is as youthful and dynamic as its super heavily peated predecessors, distilled patiently from the 2015 harvest of 100% Scottish mainland barley. It's malted to 137.3 ppm, matured in the highest quality American oak casks. It is, let's see here, it's aged 5 years. It's 100% Scottish grown concerto barley, full term maturation in first fill bourbon, and distilled in 2016 from the 2015 harvest. And then the 14.1 is 128.9 ppm, also first fill bourbon. Let's see here. That's also Scottish grown concerto barley. And that's distilled in 2017 from the 2016 harvest. So those are the two different point ones.
Not as hot. But there's a lot of wheat and ash.
And I can read tasting notes here in a second once we've tasted these a little bit.
I think the 14 is a little more complex. Yeah.
Remember that first sip of whichever one you did first, your palate's going to be like shocked, right? I mean, this is a whole nother level. Alcohol and peat. You remember what was interesting though, keep this in mind in the video, they said that, even though the phenols, the parts per million are really, really high, some of that distillation will reduce the actual output of the level of smoke that you might think it would be. So
Even during.
all right, I'm going to read a few tasting notes. How about we do a nose to nose? Let's just go part by part, right? This is kind of fun. We've never really done anything like this before. So this is the tasting notes on the 13.1 on the nose. Sweet, nutty smoke loaded with barley, sugar, and ripe fruit. Syrupy apricot and ripe pear, along with malty vanilla notes of barley flour and creme brulee, hot honey, and tablet. American oak brings coconut, almonds, and charred oak. Peat smoke is delicate but powerful. Brings out boot polish, leather, and earthy notes. Okay, so that's 13.1. And then the nose on the 14.1, smoked vanilla, sweet caramel, and toffee notes open on the nose. Sooty smoke balanced with delicate coconut and flaked almonds. There's an unmistakable earthy smokiness and a hint of citrus with lemon meringue pie cutting through rich barbecue pork.
That's the fun part about
The second one is definitely meatier.
Yeah.
First one's spikier.
Yeah, first one's kind of spiky.
Yeah, the second one is, I get much more vanilla notes. It's actually creamier on the second one.
You're getting more cream on the second one, Shalom?
Yeah, the first one's got a lot more punch, it seems.
What about citrus? Because they talk about citrus a lot.
Yeah, I'm getting some orange peel.
I just get that on the edges of my tongue and the finish. I don't see it otherwise, but I do get like PO of something.
All right, so here are the palate notes. So let's see if we get any of these palate notes. This is 13.1. Viscous, densely smoked grain comes through like smoked granola with honeyed fruit. Second sip brings the opportunity to decipher the complexity on the palate with smoked apricot jam, barley flour, peat embers, and burnt heather, balanced with gooseberry, citrus, and sweet Turkish delight. Wow, that's a mouthful there. All right, the palate on the 14.1, bright citrus, smoke, and a distinct minerality come through on the palate, followed by charred oak and beach bonfire embers. Toffee and creamy vanilla are balanced with the earthy smoke, with bright notes of pear, gooseberry, fool, and green apple. Roasted coffee, hints of clove and nutmeg, gentle hint of heather honey. So butterscotch and vanilla on the finish on the 14.1, and then on the finish, the 13.1, more earthy, mossy note. So interesting.
I got more coconut notes on the palate and finish on the first one too, even on the finish
I got the coconut.
on the 13.
On the 13th cinnamon, but the spice on the 14 was more like a ginger for me.
Nate's very much on his bullshit over there. It's like, he's gonna be doing that all night.
She was 240.
This is definitely a tasting where you're going to want to clean your palate as much as you can, because the smoke is overwhelming at times. And cucumbers are great if you have cucumbers, or just some crackers and water. Nothing with too much flavor though, just keep it clean. And then the other thing to do with this, when you get maybe a little bit further through your dram, is maybe add a drop or two of water and see what that does, you know, because these are really high alcohol.
Charles, on our first trip to Ilo, what number did we get? Do you remember?
Well,
I
so
still have that one open in my basement.
yeah, so the event horizon year, that was 10, right, Shalom? Those were 10, 10.4, 10, yeah, 10s. That was 10.4, yeah, so that was probably 8.
Okay.
Because that was 2017.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first Octomore I ever had was the 6.1 in 2015.
Okay.
I don't know that has to do with the question.
Just bragging on the low. We get it.
All right, let's talk about what do we like between these two, or you know, what are we leaning towards? Now, one thing I will say for myself personally, when I have a lot of smoke on a dram, I tend to like more European oak as a maturation, just because I love the way the sweetness balances with the smoke. Sometimes when you're dealing with bourbon, it can be quite sharp. You know, this either the citrus or the peat really comes out sharply sometimes with bourbon. However, these are first fill bourbon. That's typically the case with refill or hogshead. So these are actually a little bit better. I'm leaning myself towards 14.1, just has a little bit more creaminess and roundness to it. But 13.1 has that typical kind of bourbon smoke quality, which some people really love as well. So I'm going to ask the room first, and then I'll ask online. How about that? So we're not all talking on each other. So what do you guys want to go around the table real quick? Just kind of give me what your thoughts are and favorite was.
The 13 I thought was a little hotter,
So Vinny says 13 was hotter.
and I like the 14 a little better.
You like the 14 better. Okay. All right, let's keep going. We'll go down around the table here.
Agree.
All right. The second person said yes.
In the 14,
Okay,
I thought it was a little smoother.
okay.
I'd be
14, yeah. How about you, Nate?
There's more variance in the 14.
Nate's just
Okay.
saying what I said.
Better highs and lows.
Better highs and lows in the 14.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm gonna say it more eloquently than you. So yeah, there's bigger contrast between nose and palate. In
Okay.
14, which is
Yeah,
it stands out.
a larger contrast between the nose and the palate with 14 than with 13. All right, let's go down the row here.
I no favorite between the two. I like them both.
Likes them both.
Yeah,
Good.
they're really
There we
fun
go.
shoes.
Nice.
Yeah, 14 for sure.
14. Okay.
Yeah, I thought the 14,
14.
more assertive,
Okay.
similar, like the nose did not correspond with what I thought I
Yeah.
was gonna get with the palate.
Okay.
14 more complex, and I like the highs, the sweetness mixed with the
Okay. So maybe the extra sweetness in 14 helps balance it a little bit. Again, I always am a big believer of sweet with smoke. Kind of works well. You thinking the same, Chad?
Yeah, 14, a little more buttery, a little softer.
A little buttery,
13,
soft.
Spiky, peppery.
Okay.
But I don't get dessert.
You there too?
Yeah, the sweetness of 14.
Okay. All right. Well, the group in house is leaning towards the 14. We did have one person who liked them both. How about online? Where are we at online?
So we had a difference of opinion here. I had a slight preference for the 14 over the 13, but Maggie really liked the 13 a lot. She liked the punchiness of it.
Okay. And again, that's exactly what you're getting out of that one. Peppery, punchy. All right, that's good to know.
So of the two, I like the 14 better. However, the 13 with a little bit of water, actually, I liked it a lot more than I initially did.
Has anybody added water to the 13?
Yeah.
Just a drop? Yeah. Okay.
It got more minty with water than 13, but it was still hot.
Okay. Then he
Yep.
says add a little mint.
Yep.
How about you, Hayden?
Yeah, I like the 14. I get a lot of the butter notes and the little bit of the sweetness. Yeah, the 14 was great.
I added water to both of them, and that really calmed down the 13. But I still like 14 a little better.
Okay.
I initially liked the 13 better, but the more that I had the 14, the more that I leaned in that direction. I got a little bit of like fruit with the 13. I didn't get with the 14. I think initially I liked that a bit more, but then when I sat with the 14 and got through I don't drink a lot of peat, so once I was sat with it for a while, the 14 grew on me.
With these whiskeys as well, it doesn't hurt for them to sit out for a little bit. You know, if you're just opening your little bottle right now, it needs a little bit of time to breathe. So I actually poured our set here in house about an hour and a half ago. Now they were covered, but still just getting them out of the bottle opens it up a little bit and helps. But all right. Well, that was a good start. I'm curious, what do they charge for these drams and bars anymore? I haven't been to a bar in so long.
9 Maple was $50 for the 13.1.
$50 for the 13.1?
Yeah, my brother was buying it.
Okay. All right. Well, we just paid for the
The New Hampshire, the New Hampshire State Liquor Store has 14.1 for $2.19
Okay.
and
Oh,
14.2 for $2.60.
Yeah. Yeah, I was looking at the prices earlier. So as a shop, since we're small, we get a really small allocation of stuff from Southern, which is where
I didn't see any in the shop. I looked up there. Okay.
So the 13s, we didn't get any. We got 0 of the 13s. And they had told us we could probably get 1 of each, but that didn't happen. So I ended up getting the 13s from Brendan at Hamlet. This is like a year and a half ago. And then the 14s came this last fall, and we did get 1 of each. And with the discount, I gave obviously it's a shop discount, right? I charged the club 200 for the 14.1, 240 plus tax for the 14.2, and then I think the 14.3 was 270 or something like that. So in total, it was not cheap, let's put it that way. But you know, when we're doing this and a dram is 40-50 bucks at a bar, we've already paid for ourselves after these 2 drams, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, the best prices I saw for the 14.2 and 14.3 were 250 and 300. So
all right. And don't feel like you have to finish these. There's plenty of time tonight. Those drams are fairly large, so and it's high alcohol. If you're sharing, you're probably in a good spot. All right. Okay, so we're gonna move on. Are we ready to move on to the 0.2s? I don't want to rush through this. It's like one of those special tastings. We don't want to. We could sing songs or.
S'mores might be appropriate for all the smoke.
Yeah, right. Or some smoked fish, some oysters. This June, a group of us from the club are going to Bruichladdich, and we have the whole afternoon with them. So it'll be pretty special. They're gonna take us to the water source. We're gonna actually go and see the water source out by Octomore Farm. And then we're going to do a full private tour and warehouse experience. So it should be pretty fantastic. All right, so let me read a little bit about 13.2 and 14.2, so we know what we're drinking here. Okay, 13.2. Offers an alternative maturation to the structural brilliance delivered by its 13.1 counterpart. In an indulgent point of difference, the 5-year-old spirit has spent its entire maturing life in Oloroso butts from the Fernando de Castilla in Spain. So this is 137.2 parts per million. This is 58.3% ABV. So we dropped just a tiny bit. It's 100%, again, Scottish grown concerto barley, distilled in 2016 from the 2015 harvest, but first fill Oloroso sherry. So that's the 13.2. And the 14.2. 128.9 ppm. This is in a mix of Oloroso and Amarone wine casks, hailing from the renowned wine regions of Spain and Italy, respectively. The spirit is then brought together. There's more. The spirit is then brought together in French oak, adding depth and complexity to the single malt. So this one, again, 100% Scottish grown concerto barley, 57.7% ABV, also 5 years old, distilled in 2017 from the 2016 harvest. So these should be actually quite different. You don't have the same type of barrels. Now, there are percentages here. So 40% first fill Oloroso. Only 16% first fill Amarone casks, and then 44% second fill Amarone casks.
Say those again, I'm sorry. 40%.
It's 40% Oloroso, hogshead, 16 first fill Amarone, 44 second fill Amarone.
Good, thanks.
Yep.
I know it's similar to sherry, but it's.
So Amarone, so those who don't know what that is, and I'm gonna look it up right now because I forget. It's a type of wine. It's rich, expressive red wine from the Veneto, so Venice area of northeastern Italy.
He's got a lot of beef.
It's so yeah, another red wine. It's a blend of a lot of three or four different grapes. So, and it is a luxurious wine. It's not one that's probably that cheap either. So, and that's one of the things that makes Bruichladdich is they're playing around with different wine barrels. They're very well known for reinventing whiskey with maturation. So Jim McEwen, the distiller for many years, he was the one who kind of spearheaded that along with Mark Rainier, and Shalom even got in trouble once for divulging the type of barrel that Bruichladdich was using from the Champagne region, right, Shalom? Or what was that from? Was it a? What was the barrel you got in trouble for?
It was a Bordeaux.
Oh, Bordeaux. Sorry, yeah.
I can't disclose any more than that. It was a Chateau something.
That's right.
Sent him a letter. He put it. They were there. Saw it. And then he got a season for whiskey points.
And that's why Whiskey Points is down right now.
Right, until my battle with Bruichladdich is settled. No. It's has nothing to do with that. It'll be up and running in the next couple of weeks.
Shalom needs to add another quarter to the jukebox.
Yeah.
Yeah, that unfortunately is the reality.
I thought you said that's not.
Oh,
Can you tell us the barrel for 14 yet?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the first one was just Oloroso, and the second one was combo of Oloroso and Amarone.
Remember when you said, what is Amarone?
You definitely get the wine notes. I'm getting a lot of the wine notes from 14.2.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. It makes it kind of oily and sulfuric. I like the 13.2 a lot better.
There's some sulfur, and I think the Amarone's kind of, it's mellowing that sherry. To a certain
It's taking
extent.
over, maybe.
I would say almost taking over, but it lends almost a dryness.
It definitely dries your mouth
dries
out
it
right
out,
at the end. Yeah.
Sure. Sure.
I like the nose, though. I think the nose is really
Nose
nice.
is really good.
What?
All right, let me read some of the notes that they have here.
Yeah.
So here are the nose. Here's the notes for the nose. This is the 13.2. Nutty, salty smoke with milk chocolate and leathery tobacco. Oloroso has shaped the whiskey with a rich syrupy orange and grapefruit citrus, along with hints of clove and cinnamon with walnut and praline. And then 14.2, the nose is more leather, prunes, red currants and malted barley, followed by toasted oak and hints of cinnamon, green apple, and black pepper. Red fruits follow, cereal notes of malt and porridge. Peat smoke is dry and brooding with a hint of burnt heather and pipe tobacco. And then we got the palate. So 13.2 palate, wonderful viscosity and presence on the palate. Notes of smoked nuts and leather, warm orange marmalade on fresh scones, dried apricot, and hints of peppery spice towards the finish. And then the palate of 14.2, the influence of European oak is unmissable with a touch of dryness, balanced with the vibrancy of wood spices, smoked oak, and roasted coffee. Barbecue sweetness and a crack of black pepper is complemented with rich fruit cake and dried fruits. A drop of water opens the smoke and fruity sweetness from the wine casks, bringing a beautiful balance as notes of apple and pear grow with the dram. So it sounds like water might be the thing with 14.2 because they don't mention that in 13. So again, no problem. Nothing wrong with adding a little water to see what that does to these.
Well, it tones down the dryness.
Yeah, I
A
mean,
little bit better
that's
than
what should happen, right?
I like the taste of the 14 throughout, but I don't love the finish.
This one, I just, all I got was.
Water made this one a little spicy.
Which one?
The 13, and it also brought out a little more sulfur.
I just added some water to 14.
Just a little too medicinal, not the right ways.
I was gonna say I like the 13.2 better, but after I added water, I think I like the 14.2 better.
Yeah.
Well, that makes it a lot different.
That's really nice.
14.2 when you add the water. The sherry comes out, it's less dry.
Yeah, the sherry comes forward.
Yeah, it does, it brings out the sherry.
It's not as dry. Yeah. That's really neat how that happens.
I'm liking the 14.2. Now that I added the water, I like the 14.2. Definitely.
The writers.
Let me ask a question. What about a comparison between the 0.1 and the 0.2? What do you like more at this point? 2?
Yeah, I like the
1?
14.2.
All right, there's a 1. 2. There's some 2s. Any
I want to clarify. I love between the one, oh shit, 2. Sorry, 2. Sorry. I was thinking the first one we tried and then the second one in the pairs. Anyway, the 13.2.
No, I'm talking about the 0.1s versus the 0.2s. So 0.2s seem to be the.
I think 0.1's for me.
0.1s for Dan. All right. Okay.
The 13.1, the 14.2.
Okay. Oh, interesting. 13.1, really? That was
More than the 13.2.
okay.
What did you think of 13.2?
I like it actually.
I like it.
13.2 is my favorite so far.
So that means everybody should hate it.
Thanks, Charles.
Because whiskey points is so subjective.
My lips are tingling.
This is true.
Water really helped. It did 13.2.
You can just drink the water alone.
Right.
I like 13.2 a lot.
I'm leaning towards the 13.2. Just straight up without any water.
The water did take away.
14.2 was better, but yeah.
It is strong.
Yeah.
I do like fungus. I do. Interestingly enough, it has some fungus. Yeah, that's actually nice.
Just take your time with these. These are like, really complex, lots of layers. Your palate's going to adjust to them as well. Lots of water. Don't try to
I know this may sound a little weird. I mean, I'm obviously getting I get raisins at a campfire and kind of nuttiness on the 13.2 on the palate. But the finish, I'm getting, along with the dried fruits, I'm getting some roses.
floral.
Yeah.
And the nut is pistachio.
Yeah, I absolutely love the 13.2 because I get so much of that campfire flavor out of it and less of the barbecue-y flavor, which I'm less partial to, like the sort of more hickory smoke. And I just love that campfire. And then the nose is so much Oloroso. Love it.
Yeah, it's really nice. I agree with that. Exactly. This is like the perfect dram for a beach bonfire.
Absolutely.
Barbecue. You couldn't go wrong with that. It actually, in a weird way, reminds me a little bit of Bunnahabhain flavor profile that I've had. I can't point my finger on it, but
I mean, one of the things that Bruichladdich has that Bunnahabhain doesn't is it's kind of got this clove kind of spice to it that the Bunnahabhains don't have.
yeah.
13-2 would go really well with a mild Dominican cigar.
Yeah.
Like a Davidoff. A Davidoff would be perfect with 13-2.
All day.
All right, so we're gonna go around the room here and see what people liked in terms of these two, because I think it'll be a different objective here. So what are you thinking, Vinny?
13-2.
13. So we're back to 13 now. 13 or 14?
I was back and forth, but I think I'm landing on 13.
13? So the Oloroso is beating out the Amarone right now.
Yeah.
Not for long.
Not for long, I hear.
That's the beauty of having.
So where we go?
13.
13, all right, 3 13s, 14, 14, Nate, 14.
Charles, if I came in the shop and bought 13, like if I had had the opportunity to buy the 13 set, I wouldn't have bought the 14 set.
Oh,
So much he dislikes
the 13 too.
Now buying the 14
I
set,
could
I would want to buy the 15
oh,
set.
gotcha. So Nate hasn't been impressed with the 13s at all. He's really favoring the 14s, which is fine. What about you, Matt?
I think the 14 is
14?
is
All right.
better. Yeah.
So we're even right now.
Slam dunk 14.
14.
Sound. Yeah, I preferred 14, but water really did change the profile of 13 too.
Okay, so still 14, 14. All right, we're leaning 14 again.
14, 13 is a little too medicinal for me.
Okay,
13 by a long shot.
okay,
Go 14.
14. So we're leaning 14 in the in-house, but there's still quite a bit of 13. I'm actually gonna say 13 myself. Shalom sounds like 13. What about you, Larry?
I usually go with Oloroso, but with the water and whatnot, I think I'm going with the 14.
All right. And I agree, the water helped tremendously with that tram. I actually like them both a lot.
Well, right.
But I think that for me, the 13 a little bit more. But how about you, Hayden?
I like the 14, barely. They're really close, but the 14.
Did you add water at all?
I didn't. No.
Try that. Just try.
Okay.
Just stick your finger in a glass and just drop a couple of drops in there. How about you, Luke?
Like I said, I really love the 13 over the 14 on this one, clear winner. But I do think that the water made the 14 like really stand up to it in a way that was cool. But my buddy Ed here liked the 14. So.
All right. What about you, Dave?
I like the 14. I mean, I really liked the 13 when I first tasted it. And definitely the Oloroso had an impact.
Yeah.
But once I added water to the 14, I really think that kind of even things out. So
Yeah.
I would like them both better than the 0.1s though.
If I didn't have to add water to the 14, I probably would have gone with the 14 based on the flavor that you get with water. But I don't want to, if you're doing an even matchup without water, the 13 was my favorite between the two. But I do agree that adding water, the 14 is almost on par with the 13 for me. But when you're judging apples on apples, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we need some other friends. There's a welcoming party for it.
Both delicious.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're both really good. And typically with Octomores, the 0.2s are some of the favorites of like the Octomore fans or Bruichladdich fans. 0.2s tend to always like come through. So that's kind of just another thing to think about. So if you did have the opportunity to buy one of the 3 or 4 releases, if you can get your hands on a 0.2, That's typically the winner, but oh, Dave's got a 14.2. There you go.
I take it.
Had you opened it yet?
They're all good.
Yes.
Okay.
That's off the bat. We're trying to split hairs.
Had you added water to it yet?
Six stellar grades. It's like the
I don't know, I haven't touched it since I got it, other than an initial taste a couple months ago.
Okay.
So I don't remember if I used water or not.
Yeah. You can't even eat it.
I was really, like it was so, yeah. It's so. It's all man. Gotcha. It's not like red sauce stuff. Oh, yeah.
All right. I see a lot of whiskey still in glasses here, which is great. So take your time. Do we want to talk about the next one, or do we want to wait? I mean, I don't want to rush anybody. I mean, we could talk about it and taste it, and you guys can go back and, you know.
Can you talk about how they measure the
Yeah, so that's a good question. So Chad asked, you know, how do they measure the ppm? It's truly done at the very beginning in the malting process. You know, it's all about how much input or influence the smoke is into the grain, and how much they can measure that. You know, how much peat smoke actually gets infused into the grain, so they can measure that. However, you know, there's no other. They don't typically measure that at any other point in the process, because it's really impossible to do, because when you have the grain, you can measure it, but then once it's mashed, it's liquid and becomes, you know, so it's really hard, especially after distillation, to even think about measuring ppm. There's probably ways to measure the whiskey, you know, like with some kind of tool, but it's not going to give you the real initial, because so much changes with all of these processes as well. So it's really at the beginning that the ppm is determined. And typically with on Isla, the higher whiskeys with ppm like Ardbeg and Lafroig, you're talking about 50 as being on the high end. So 50, you know, anything around 50 is pretty high. So when we're jumping up to the hundreds and even 200s, because one of these I believe is over 200 ppm. I mean, that it's technically, you would think it would be 4 times as smoky. It's not going to be 4 times as smoky. It's going to be a little smokier, but it's not going to, you can't measure it in multiples like that. The distillation and all the other things, and also the quality of the spirit, will change that final product. If it was a really crappy spirit and was really highly peated, and it would probably be like unbearable to drink if it was bad made spirit, you know, just but the fact that Bruichladdich makes such great spirit, you know, and it really helps balance out these high levels of ppm. So all right, we're going to move on to 13.3 and 14.3. So what makes the 0.3s unique is that it's barley from Isla. That's the true distinguishing factor. And this is grain that's coming from the famous farmer James Brown, the Octomore farm. So 13.3 is 129.3 parts per million. So we're in that same zone. It's also 5 years old. It's interesting that all of these are always the same age. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay. So this one's 61.1% ABV, so pretty high. This is 100% Octomore Farm Isla grown concerto barley. And here's the barrel profile for 13.3. This is matured in a combination of first fill ex-American whiskey and second fill ex-European oak. So they don't give the percentages, but it's a combo of both American oak and second fill European oak. All right, 14.3. This one's quite different. All right, so we talked about ppm. So the ppm on 14.3 is 214.2. So this is the highest ppm of the night for sure. The 214.2. So really high. Also 5 years, 61.4%. Again, 100% Isla grown concerto barley. This one is 50% first fill ex-American whiskey casks and then 50% second fill wine casks. So it's going to be quite different from the 13.3.
This one's got a lot of herbal.
Can you say those cats again?
Yeah, so you want both. 14 is a 50-50 split between American oak and second fill wine.
What kind of wine?
It doesn't say.
Ask Shalom. Shalom, what kind of wine?
Try to figure it out.
Hey, Charles, on the 13.3, does it say what the European oak was?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes they divulge a lot, and then sometimes they're very vague.
This 13's very
Um,
herbal. Lots of- lots of
I feel like it's the two that's the hardest to compare with the red wine cast and this being.
But again, what you need to think about with this one is the barley. Don't think about the barrels too much. I mean, obviously they're
But
important.
these two, they're completely different because the ppm is so different as well. Come like trying to compare their.
All right, do a ppm comparison between the two. Can you tell the difference in ppm?
I think the 14 tastes
More?
much more.
Okay. I haven't tasted these yet, so I don't know. I mean, it's quite a jump in ppm.
It tastes hotter and smokier.
Way.
Yeah.
Honestly, the 214,
The nose
I
tastes
expect
like
more of a
smells like garlic
difference.
bread.
I'm not getting that much of a difference. This may be more buttery.
What about by nose? Is there a nose difference with ppm?
There's a difference on the nose.
I don't really smell this. Of course, my palate's fried at this point, but
I don't smell a ppm difference. I smell.
Yeah.
There's a nose difference, but not ppm.
Oh, I mean, there's a big nose difference, but not smoke.
yeah.
But, you know, but it's not much of a difference in the smoke. I was expecting more.
The 14 smells like it has less smoke than the 13 does, honestly.
Yeah, the ppms, I think, I'm not sure how much we can, as humans, notice the difference when we taste or smell once you get above like 120 anyway.
14.3 has, again, not as much as the 14.2, but it has a drying component to it. The wine is showing through.
I feel like
I like my first sip of the 13.3. I thought that was pretty good sip.
Yeah, my two favorites tonight are the 13.2 and the 13.3.
Easy drinker. All of a sudden.
The 13.3 is a lot more coastal. You're getting a lot more of the, getting a lot more of the sea.
way worse than.
From 13.
Very
So what about that? What about like salinity, or are you getting more mineral coastal elements with either one of these.
A contest, right? Yeah.
Do they store their, is their warehouse all on island?
Yeah.
Really? Wow. No, it was the meetings. That's why I said
Minerally,
right here when they pop
herbal,
those.
and musky.
For 13.3. It can be a little tough getting through the smoke to pick out some of that. All right, let's go to tasting notes because maybe that'll help. 13.3. The nose on 13.3. Aromas of malt, sugar, gentle peat lead you into the dram. Layers of fresh green fruit, followed by rose, geranium, apricot, and eucalyptus. Marzipan, ginger nut biscuits, and honeyed melon can also come through. On the palate for 13.3, soft and delicate, sweet honey and brown sugar give way to a whisper of peat smoke, just a whisper. The second sip brings lemon rind and seashells. There you go. There's the salinity. A delicate maritime hint, along with malty biscuit notes and marzipan and coconut. Let's see, 14.3, nose. Transporting you to the Bruichladdich Distillery courtyard. The aromas of hot, sweet mash are unmistakable on the nose. Soft, biscuity malts followed by peat smoke and an assortment of sweet stone fruits with ripe apricot, peach, and honey drizzled pears. Palate. Delicate oak notes immediately come through, followed by the presence of smoldering peat. Floral hints of gorse and honeysuckle rise above the malty Islay-grown barley, which is rich and sweet with creamy porridge and cereal notes. The structure of the French oak, together with the sweet vanilla and toffee of the American oak, combine beautifully, bringing a harmonious balance to the palate. There you go.
Water brings out like the citrus note.
Yeah, water helps it a little bit as it did in 14.2.
The second one?
Yeah. Thirteen three is nice.
So Doug Wolfson was going to join us on the Zoom tonight, and he's flying in the air. He's on a commercial plane, and I'm sure he opened his first dram and was told to shut that bottle, sir.
Sir, you can't, sir. Sir. Yeah, Wolfson got arrested.
Yeah, we're gonna see Doug on the NBC Nightly News tomorrow night.
You set off the smoke detector.
Yeah. To open up something that smells smoky on a plane is probably not the best idea.
These tasting notes are very different.
Yeah, the oxygen mask came down as soon as he opened the first bottle. Actually, you know what's probably happening right now is the TSA is having the tasting of a lifetime in a back room somewhere.
I brought hundreds of sample bottles.
You're not allowed to drink them on a plane. It's the rules. It's the rules. How many ounces are those sample bottles?
Under 8 ounces.
All right, for me, this is a tough one. I like them both. Again, they're very different. Let's go around the room real quick just to see what we got. So 13.3 versus 14.3. Where are we at, Vinny?
I'm gonna say the 14.3 just slightly edges out.
Okay,
It's
so
very
close to even. All right. 14, all right.
I think I would say 13.
13, all right. We're even again. Where we at, Ricky? 14, all right. 14, yeah. 14, all right. We're slightly 14. 14.
It's close to a push.
Okay,
Yeah, I would say tie, but
okay.
If I
So
had to,
still
I'd say
slight
14.
14, all right.
Yeah, lean in 13.
Leading 13, all right. Starting to sway.
This is tough.
It is tough.
Yeah.
Can you get some more?
Some more. I'm gonna go 14.
Okay, 14
14 for the night.
for the night.
14
Okay,
for the
14
night.
for the night. Interesting.
Yeah, it's probably.
Nick, you're
I'll go
there?
14.
14. All right, so 14 slightly leading right now.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
13 for Larry. 31 for Larry, actually.
I preferred the 14. I thought the nose was just killer on it, honestly, and that could sell it for me. So, but I like the 13 too.
So Shalom has them. Here's Shalom's ranking. Shalom went 13.2, 13.3, and then 14.1, 14.3, 13.1, and 14.2 was his last. So his two favorites though were 13.2 and 3. Nick says 14. Hayden says 14.1 was his top for the night, 14.3 just underneath. All right, interesting. Dave says 14.
It's just so amazing.
All right.
The 13.1.
And
I was actually going to ask if I could phone a friend.
You can phone whoever you want, Dave.
Such an expensive tasting. I didn't want to throw it out.
Yeah. 13 too. Good.
So I'm curious, now that we've done 6 Octomores, what are your thoughts on Octomore in general? Like, is
Do
it
6 more.
Okay. Has his own thoughts? No, but like when you're thinking about like great whiskeys and whiskeys that you love and whiskeys that you want to spend money on and maybe not spend money on, like where does Octomore rank in that world? Like is this one of those kind of like peculiar, very expensive things that I don't need, or is this something that you'd like to try from time to time but don't want to buy a bottle? You know what I mean? Like, where does this fall? Obviously, we're all doing this tasting if we enjoy peat. I would think there probably aren't any non-peat fans in this tasting. But I'm just curious, like,
I mean, they're young.
so we've had, well, yeah, there is a 10-year. So they do have older Octomores. These were young, but the Octomore Event Horizon, which was the festival bottle in 2019, was only 3 years, and that's one of the best Octomores I've ever had. So age doesn't always mean anything, especially with their whiskeys, for sure. And they really kind of can prove it in a lot of ways, but I don't know. I'm just trying to like get a sense from a general public consumer standpoint.
So I have to say, I have enjoyed Bruichladi's entire line, even from the classic Lottie, which is not all the way through the Octomore. I have and would want to have each of their expressions on my bar cart.
Okay, great.
I'd have a hard time buying one of these off the shelf.
Okay.
Because the difference between the ones that I really liked and the ones that I didn't like is too great.
Right.
It's a coin flip for me with Octomore. For the price, it's kind of.
And I'm not going to risk that at $260.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I'd say I'm less likely to buy a blind.
Like if it was like a Lefroy or like
based on how different
Yeah.
it was, and just 13 to 14. It's not like you say, oh, I really liked the 0.1 last year, so I should try it again this year, and I know I'll like it. But I would definitely come back and do another vertical tasting.
Right.
Try all of them.
Yeah, I mean the truth is being able to taste 6 Octomores like this is really the best way to know whether or not it's worth it for you to invest in a bottle, right? I mean, but
I don't think there's like super consistency between all the expressions, which is good because they do a lot of stuff, but like tasting like a Lefroy or like a peated Bunnahabhain always seems to kind of be in like a certain category that I like, that I would buy it off the shelf versus this can go in so many different directions.
Right. Yeah, it's
I would have to agree with
very
Nate.
true. Yeah.
This is a very special.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. That I mean, some of the Octomores I've had are the best whiskeys I've ever had, but some of them are kind of like meh. And why would I spend $200 for one? So I think having the opportunity to do a tasting like this if you could do a tasting and then make a purchasing decision, that would be awesome.
Right. Which is not possible. unless you're in at Bruichladdich and are able to taste them there at the bar and buy them off the shelf. But yeah, it's pretty hard to do here in the US, unfortunately. But what was interesting for me though was there was a side of me that was thinking that they paid more attention to the 14s than they did the 13s for some reason, but I did like the 13s a lot. I just thought they tried to be more unique with the 14s, but I don't know. You know, with the mixtures of wine barrels and the Amarone, and the 13s were very kind of consistent in a way. Oh, the .4s. Let me pull that up. It's getting a little loud here in the den.
Now my brother has a basin, well, he lives in Manhattan, but he decided to buy a house out here because he likes to spend the summer.
So 13.4.
Whiskey and cigars, I think.
He brings cigars.
You know, I'm always up for having people over drinking whiskey because.
I'm the same way. I don't drink it by myself. When I drink it by myself, I'm like drinking like 11 or 7, something like that.
All right, here, hold on a second, guys. Hold on a second. Let me just explain what the .4s are, because we had a question about the .4s. So when you have a .4, what typically it means is that it's virgin oak. That's usually what they're doing with the .4. So the 13.4, just so you have an idea, begins in first fill American whiskey for 6 months before being only 6 months before being transferred into a 300-liter American virgin oak cask. Let's see how long it's in that. If it says here, oh yeah, okay. Actually, it doesn't say how long. Let me see if I can get an age on this. Okay, so the age is 5 years again for the 13.4, but it's virgin oak for the most of the time, 4.5 years in virgin oak. 137.3 ppm. All right, let me get to the 14.4. Okay. So 14.4. Oh, this is different. So 14.4 is matured in Colombian virgin oak. It's Scottish. Yeah, it keeps you up all night.
Really love this 14.4.
It's Scottish mainland barley, peated 106 ppm. Well, let's see what it says here. 14.4 matured exclusively in Colombian virgin oak. Further innovation for the experimental series, the rare Colombian oak structure is similar to that of French oak, with the tight grain releasing a significant amount of sweet vanilla and caramel. A variety of Colombian virgin oak casks at various toast levels were filled to create the final 14.4. Let's see. It's also 5 years, 106, 59.2 ABV. So there you go. You just need to think about it's the virgin oak. That's really what makes the .4. But it doesn't have to be American. It could be from Colombia. So there you go.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hopes at least.
Is there a .5?
No.
Okay.
No.
We weren't sure how far this went up.
Yeah, no, .4 is the last of the line. And we were able to get the 10.4s when we were on Isla. Those were pretty great.
For me, it was the 14.3. Yeah.
Anybody online have any more questions? Because I'm probably gonna wrap up the online portion of this tasting just because it's gonna get really loud here. And it's gonna be hard for anybody to hear anybody. So anybody have any?
This was a great tasting though. Thank you.
Yeah. Pretty special.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Thanks.
Really good opportunity.
Yeah. Very cool.
Not a bad way to spend a Thursday night.
Nope.
Special
Get
treat.
ready for the State of the Union, right?
What's that?
Get ready for the State of the Union.
Yeah, well, you know what? I forgot to mention that. Yeah. I mean, this is so much better than the State of the Union. Are you kidding me?
This is the state of our union.
Yeah.
State of our union.
I think the
I love
State of the
that, Larry.
Union should be called Up in Smoke. Because that's where our country is headed. So yeah, it's kind of fitting that we're doing a Octomore Vertical on the State of the Union night.
Fitting.
We know our State of the Union. It's whiskey, so
Yeah.
that's all that matters. But all right, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up tonight. We'll see you around, and hope you can join us for our next tastings. They're pretty great. So
Looking forward to it.
Right.
cheers, guys.
Look forward to it.
Thanks, Charles. Take care.
Good night.